a lot of people may not really have the roadmap, where, when things go wrong inside a Google Ads account, what do you need to be looking at? Action stations, all hands on deck type of mentality. What are the go-to metrics? What are the go-to signs inside a Google Ads account? How do we, steer the ship a little bit in the right direction?
How's it going, everybody? It's Gene Villanoz here and my co-host Ryan Fenton, and we're doing the PPC Cave in a new format today, but everything is on the up and up. I can see right now that we have better quality video, and I think the PPC Cave is definitely going places. What do you think, Ryan?
Oh yeah, this last month or two, we've made a lot of behind the scenes improvements. Obviously, it started off with Joel, who's come on board, absolutely amazing, smashing things. And, we've definitely noticed a difference just from him coming on and being our editor and, all the work he's doing, we really appreciate it and it's amazing. So, this is just that next step. And, I think it was a recommendation from Joel actually to say, you guys should move away from the software that we were using before. We don't want to diss any other platforms out there. But now we're trying something new. And so far, I'm liking it. Gene, I think you're liking it. It's a little bit more standy out-ish, I think. And yeah, the quality looks much better. So we'll see how it goes.
Guys and ladies, if you see better quality in our YouTube videos, in our Spotify video, comment below better quality, just to give us a little bit more of an encouragement that our investment is for naught, right? So getting into our episode today, we are talking about what to do when things go wrong. Episode 56, what to do when things go wrong in a Google Ads PPC account. Before we get into our points, Ryan actually came up with this topic, and what was kind of the brainchild or the genesis of why you wanted to discuss this today?
Yeah, I just thought a lot of people may not really have the roadmap, where, when things go wrong inside a Google Ads account, what do you need to be looking at? Action stations, all hands on deck type of mentality. What are the go-to metrics? What are the go-to signs inside a Google Ads account that, okay, things are going wrong? How do we, steer the ship a little bit in the right direction? So I'm trying to lay out a little bit of a blueprint for everybody that they can kind of follow these tips and suggestions, and hopefully get your account in working order. Yeah, we've got a lot to go through today. I think it's very helpful. Some accounts can probably be recovered in some ways if they're not performing well. Other accounts, it might just not be the right time for you. I think before we get into it, really, what I would say is if you are a little bit uncertain at this point where you're questioning, is my Google Ads account going wrong? And the campaign's not performing. Gene and I both offer audits, so feel free to email us at theppccave@gmail.com. And, I guess choose your Google Ads Pro, whether it's me or Gene, who you want to do the audit. And we can go in, we can take a look, we can give you advice on how to improve things, how to, like I said, steer that ship in the right direction. So feel free to reach out. But we've got a great episode, and I'm looking forward to going through the points.
Absolutely. And that's a good segue with an audit to our first question. And I want to ask Ryan this, if he's ready. What do you do when performance tanks after making a change? I would consider it maybe a big change, such as maybe a bid strategy change. What do you do if performance tanks after that?
Good question. For me, I've been looking at, well, number one, what the hell's gone wrong, right? I mean, it'd be as a, I guess it depends. Like, if performance tanks, are we talking conversions have dropped? Excuse me. Are we talking like impressions have dropped or clicks, or we're not spending the budget? Like things are dwindling down? Is that what we're kind of talking about there?
I would consider it more of, like you said, the first thing, the conversions or conversion value dropping all of a sudden. What do you do?
Yeah, so Number one is I would look to see if a conversion goal had been removed, because that all of a sudden would explain why we're not getting those conversions come through. Maybe the client or whoever is listening to this as a business owner, maybe your website has changed, or maybe inside the Google Ads account, the conversion goal isn't active anymore; it's inactive. So I'd do some research around the conversion goal first and foremost. Um, just to see. I mean, do you think that's fair, Gene? Would you do the same
Th-
thing?
that's actually that's a pro tip. If you know, you know, because I've done that before too, where I've jumped the gun and not looked at the conversion tracking to see that it's inactive. And I started to do bid strategy changes, do all these crazy things that are not something that you should be doing before what Ryan just discussed. Check your conversion summary, actions, and make sure everything is firing correctly first.
Yeah, so that'd be my port of call. I'm very ship orientated today. I'm saying like steer the ship, port of call. I don't know what's going on.
Below deck over here.
Yeah, honestly. Oh, I love Below Deck. That could be another episode, honestly.
Yeah,
We could
it's so
talk for
good.
an hour about Below Deck.
I love
Um,
it.
yeah, so first thing first is check conversion tracking. Is the conversion goal active? Is it inactive? Find a way to fix that first and foremost. Then I'd probably look at, okay, well, why, if it's like clicks, impressions of going down, as a keyword being accidentally paused, or removed or something like that. Is there an issue inside the account, that advertiser verification? Has the bill been paid? All of these things, or is there a policy suspension? All of these things correlate to issues that are going wrong inside the Google Ads account. So those are like the big red flags, I guess, the first major issues that I would check out. After that, it would be digging deep into the campaign, at least for me, taking a look at the keywords, taking a look at the bidding strategy. Are we spending the full daily budget? As the market dried up, if we pause some really good performing search terms, all of these things, basically it would be doing a mini audit of the campaign and checking off one by one. Okay, is it locations? Is it device? Is it keywords? Is it the budget? Are we spending the budget? Is it the bidding strategy? Is just going through everything to figure out, okay, why has performance tanked? That would be my go-to. What would you do if performance
Yeah.
tanked in one of your campaigns, in one of your accounts?
Yeah, for sure. One thing well, I usually just speak off the experience that I have. And one time I was actually on a account, and the recommendations tab. I don't apply the recommendations, but I'll look through them. And sometimes it could just be a mistake where you're trying to view a recommendation, but you accidentally apply a recommendation. So I would go through just your overall change history and see, okay, is there any weird change histories if you're looking at the day and keeping your own log that don't quite reconcile? And that could perhaps be an auto apply recommendation or recommendation you didn't mean to auto apply or apply. So that's first and foremost, just because Ryan took a lot of the good points already, which is good. No, that's why you're here. So that for sure. And like zooming out a little bit, performance tanking, that is also, it depends on how long of a window you've seen it tanked. If we're talking to less experience or just newer, I don't want to say less experience, but just if you're new to the Google Ads space and your threshold of performance is tanking is 2 days or 3 or 4 days or even a week, I can tell you right now it's not enough time to deem if something is tanking or consistent or doing well. Because consistency in Google Ads is just definitely one of the cadences that we have to abide by. There's no getting around it. If we're not seeing things from a 2 to 3 week perspective, that could be false data, right? So beware of that. If you think that something is tanking, you want to make all these changes and get into the account and audit everything. I think it's good to audit. I think it's good to audit, analyze, but once we're actually changing things, make sure that enough time has gone by before we could actually say it's tanking. So that's it for me. I think you took a lot of the good ones early on that you saw. I think, that would be my approach.
I'll be sure to leave you some good ones, good points as we go through this. But well,
Please.
let me ask you. I mean, about regarding budgets, because what I see probably 90% of the time, at least in the lead generation space, not so much e-commerce, but lead generation space, 90% of the times the clients that I've dealt with, they don't have enough budget. They've got
Mm,
$10 a day, they got £20 a day, and they're expecting us to perform miracles. We are not magicians, we're not wizards. Um, it's just one of those things where it's like, okay, we have £20 a day, we want like 50 leads every week, and it's like, well, obviously that's not enough. So what's your thoughts on budgets?
yeah, I think budgets, especially for lead gen, we're shifting gears here, um, is definitely going to be the make or break of not even just a good campaign, the make or break of you actually getting enough data and clicks to understand if this is even working, the very baseline. So, what I would do is explain to the client, hey, this is the average CPC. This is what we've done in a week. These are the clicks. And if they're like, wow, how come this isn't enough? Or there's only 3 or 4 clicks? Well, then that's a gateway that opens up to be like, okay, well, it's really because of the budget. Then we explain the whole real time auction where this is a saturated, perhaps competitor driven niche, and you're not the first one with this awesome idea of getting on Google Ads, and just kind of the experience that we've had in the past. That's what I would do first, because like Ryan said, and this will go into the next point, but I don't want to jump the gun here, but budget is super important, especially in lead gen when there are markets that are very competitive and there's no getting around that. If you don't have enough, my testing is going to be very short. I'm not going to be able to go broad with the search keywords that I have. I'm going to go super specific, just because quality score will be depleted if we're not very specific with what we're actually putting in the search keyword, the ad, and the landing page. So you have to do things that require way more time than if you were to have a bigger budget. It can test multiple keywords within an ad group itself. So I would just explain all that to a client. So that's my method.
That's really good. And I think I agree. The budget defines the strategy. Like Gene said, if you've got a small budget, well, then testing is going to be minimal. We can only probably get away with running one campaign, one ad group, and maybe a handful of keywords, something like 6 to 8 to 12 keywords if you've got such a low budget, because the realm for testing and having 3 or 4 different campaigns and 3 or 4 different ad groups in each of those campaigns, we're not there yet. So if you're coming towards with like a $10 $20 kind of budget, it's going to take you a long time to get those results come in, the data come in. So that's why we need to keep things as tight as possible. But let's just say, for example, hey, you've got $100 a day, you got $120 a day, you got $80 a day. Then we're talking a bit more realistic for different industries, for different niches. Okay, now we have a budget where we can create one campaign, but we could probably create 3 or 4 or 5 ad groups, and we could probably have anywhere between 8 to 12, maybe even more keywords in each of those ad groups and do a lot of testing. So budget defines the strategy, in my opinion. We need to get that budget down, and then once you have that, that's when you can start planning and building out the campaigns inside the account.
Yep, I agree.
Thank you. The other thing that I see in a lot of these accounts is that conversion tracking is never set up correctly. It's never firing correctly. And it just seems to be a common theme amongst many advertisers. Unless you are e-commerce, I would probably say this episode is more focused towards lead gen than e-commerce, because most of the time with e-commerce, you get a sale, then you kind of get that advertising money back and you can reinvest it and things like that. So typically, Gene and I have clients that have bigger daily budgets than those in lead generation. I think that's fair to say.
Mhm.
And most of the times, places like not Spotify, Shopify. I always get those two mixed up, man. Always bad. Shopify has the automatic conversion tracking kind of implementation thing. Once you link up your Google Ads account, your Merchant Center account, the back end of Shopify, it links and adds the conversion tracking automatically. So it's a lot easier for e-commerce, whereas for lead generation, forms, phone calls, things like that, it's a little bit more difficult to get that set up. And that is one of the bigger things that I see in many accounts is conversion tracking isn't set up correctly. So what to do when things go wrong? Well, how do you know things are going wrong if you haven't had conversion tracking set up? It could just be, okay, well, we've been tracking a button click. Okay, but is it an actual phone call? Have you got like call tracking, like call rail or what converts or something included where you can listen to the quality of that call? Or is it just a button click and then you've got no visibility on that? Or what about like, okay, well, we've got the submit button on the form that we're tracking. Yeah, but people make mistakes. People might leave out an email address and hit submit, and all of a sudden it says you need to fill this out. So it could have fired an incorrect, a false conversion if you're just tracking a submit button and not the actual form submission. So yeah, I would say make sure conversion tracking is set up correctly, because you might not know things are going right or wrong. It might be that actually you are getting a lot of leads, that you are getting a lot of calls. It's just not reflected inside the Google Ads account. Your phone might be ringing off the hook. You might think this is great, we're getting a lot of leads, but how do you know which keywords are performing the best? How do you know which campaigns or ad groups are performing the best if you don't have conversion tracking set up? So I think that's a big one. Any thoughts on that, Gene?
Yeah, definitely conversion tracking on the primary actions, as Ryan discussed, either calls or form submits. But if you're starting off with a lead gen client, I think it also is good to have just a secondary actions to maybe landing page. If you have a landing page and a form submit, just a landing page, and just make that secondary just to see, okay, these are the landing pages that are getting some type of traffic from Google Ads to the landing page, but no form submit. I think that could be a little bit helpful to maybe redesign the copy or the landing pages down the road once you get enough data.
Speaking of which, that's a good point. That leads me on to the next topic, which is enough data. How long would you say is enough data to kind of throw your hands up in the air and say, things aren't going right? I mean, you did kind of refer to it earlier about saying if you're new into the game of Google Ads and PPC. I remember in my first days, I was thinking like, oh God, we've not had an impression or a click today, and it's been like 3 days in or something like that. Whereas now we're a little bit more seasoned, probably anywhere 7 days, maybe 10 days. If we've not had any traction, maybe 5 days. I don't know. If I've launched a campaign and we're not getting any impressions after 5 days, I'll be looking to switch the bidding strategy up. But that's more
Yeah.
like growing pains, right? That's just more launch pains rather than anything else. So yeah, how long would you give it before you say, well, maybe it's just Google Ads isn't the right platform for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, like you said, it depends if it's a growing pain of just starting a new campaign or it's a new account, versus something that could be a prolonged 2 to 3 months where you've had adequate budget each month and have done multiple different tests across different multiple, if it's like sentiments of different search campaigns or even different bid strategies or even different campaign types. Just because sometimes, we think that, oh, 1 month, but we only ran one test and only spent $400. I don't think that that's adequate enough time, adequate time to really judge if something is working as a whole for Google Ads. If I am judging, okay, as a whole, does Google Ads work for me? I think 3 months of adequate budget is good. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. I think 90 days, so 3 months worth of data, is good. And if you're just not really seeing any signs of life inside the account at that point, and the campaign is set up well, conversion tracking and all the other points that we've just run through, everything is on point and set up well, and it's just a case of that, what, maybe there's just not a market there, maybe there's no demand, or maybe you're just in a really tough niche. Gene and I were talking before the episode about the different niches we struggle in. We'll be honest, it's not like every niche that we have we hit a home run. um, I guess I can say that, even though I'm UK. I mean, I don't really follow baseball so much. So,
Me neither.
but exactly, you don't. All right, okay, I never
No.
knew that. Fair enough. We can save that for another episode of a different podcast we used to run, or you used to run.
Yeah,
Um, but
Galaxy
yeah,
Club,
we were
shout out.
talking pre we were talking pre-show about yeah, different niches that we've not really had that much success in. And for me, B2B, man, it's just such a hard niche. It's such a hard sell. And I don't know if you agree with this, but
Yeah.
honestly, yeah, it's so tough because you're really trying to, like, B2C is so easy, and like direct to consumer and things like that. So e-commerce, it's not easy, but I find it easier than
Mm.
B2B, for example. Things like, for me at least, website development, website design, so difficult. I had a client in that niche for so long, and it was so tough. Just an uphill battle. Printing companies as well, very, very difficult to really make a mark in that industry, in that niche, when there are a lot of big players out there as well. But it's difficult as well when you've got places like Amazon, for printing companies, where you can just go on. Most of the time, everybody already has their card preloaded in Amazon anyway. They can just get what they want and get it tomorrow. So yeah, it's so difficult. And also for me, software as a service, personally, I wouldn't do that. I just think it's too difficult, and it's not something I want to get my hands dirty in. I'd rather just stick to lead generation and e-commerce. What about you, Gene?
Yeah, I think those are definitely tough industries and niches. And it also depends if the lead or the B2B client, what they actually want. I have one B2B client that's very different from other B2B clients. He's happy that we get subscriptions on YouTube. And that, is kind of a hard thing to figure out if it's actually, other than the subscription count, but it's like, who's subscribing? Is it an actual warm client or some guy just clicking subscribe? So yeah, it just really depends. If you want a specific opt-in to a very complicated offering for B2B, that's probably going to be very difficult. But then if you want a little bit less direct form submission, maybe a call, maybe they have some type of team. You could probably get calls, but then there's going to be a lot of spam calls. There's going to be a lot of irrelevancy also. So either way you slice it up, I think B2B, as Ryan mentioned, is just going to take a little bit more budget, a little bit more time to define who we want to target. There might be locational, you know, not issues, but tests aside from just search keywords and ads and search term negatives. So you kind of have to pull in a lot of different tools from the toolbox to make B2B client work, I feel like.
That's a good point. And then, all in all, this first kind of half of the episode, I think, is more aimed at, Google Ads account managers who have clients. And, at this point, let's just say, for example, it's a B2B client. They've ran for 3 months. They haven't really had any results. Everything's set up. Where do you go from there? Like, what would you do? Would you talk to the client, or would you just carry on?
Yeah, I think that's part of our job and service is being open with the client, and just saying, hey, we have to have a chat. It's been XYZ months. We've learned some things, and sometimes what you learn is that right in this point in time, with this budget, with everything that you got going on as services, it might not be Google Ads right now. I am more than happy to continue on testing, but you have to know, or like the client has to know what's going on. And if the client is okay, hey, let's give it 1 or 2 more months, and that takes the pressure off you, to perform immediately. But if you're trying to hide the fact that you've, tested for a good amount of time, and kind of tell a client, oh yeah, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming, conversions will come, then that just kind of puts you in a dishonest place, and a little bit more of pressure, to perform. So how would you handle it, being open with a client?
Well, this is something that I've actually just gone through. Probably either this week or last week, I had to send one of these emails, and I actually think it's important that you do have this conversation with the client, because if you put your hands up and you say, look, results aren't what we had hoped for, and this is where we are. we've done what we can. The ball's in your court. You know, we can continue going on. You can manage this yourself going forwards, or whatever the situation might be. But I think if you do have that conversation, it's not an easy conversation to have, whether it's over the phone, whether it's on an email. If you have that conversation, I'm pretty sure I'll even go as far as to say I guarantee the client will respect you more, because that way you're not putting yourself in a bad light, right? Because you're being honest with them, you're being open with them. They can respect that you're not just going to continue for another 3-6 months taking that management fee without delivering any results. Because at that point, right, it's been 90 days, we haven't generated any conversions. What do you want to do? Do you want to continue? Do you want to manage it going forward? Or would you like to continue with me and I can carry on testing different things? And sometimes it'll be, you know what, I appreciate the honesty. We'll manage it ourselves from here on out. And if we need any help, we'll be in touch. The other side of it might be, well, it might surprise you. And they might say, and like this client did for me, we'll give it another couple of months, maybe 3 months, and then we'll see how it is there. And we might manage it ourselves then. So, you know, just have these conversations with the clients. Be open and honest. I think that is one of the mantras of the whole series and probably the whole channel. I think is, you know, Gina and I always preach just about just being honest with clients, being open and honest and transparent. If results aren't going the way, you know, say it for what it is, and I think you'll be in a better position going forward. People will respect you, rather than like you're trying to pull the wool over people's eyes.
And I think that's a great point, and maybe an even better segue to our next segment, Ask a Freelancer. But yes, this segment is Ask a Freelancer, and each week we go through, me and Ryan, our Fiverr Pro freelancers, and we ask questions so that you could figure out or get advice on what to do if you're ever in the same situation as us. So I am going to ask Ryan, if you had to fire a client on air, how would you do it? And yeah, how would that go down? And have you ever, you don't have to name the client. I don't know if I've had to, but yeah, you go first. You tell me.
Wait, what do you mean? Like on air, like right now, or?
Yeah, we can role play. So I'm client XYZ. Okay. Hey, yeah. Ryan, how's it going, buddy? What do you need with, what are we talking about today?
I don't know. You know, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah,
I'm so overprepared for this segment.
I'm good. Yeah. So, you know, let's just talk about the performance from, you know, with Google Ads. When am I going to get these conversions? You know, are you even what are you even doing? You know, I think you need to send me a log of what you're doing each day, because I'm not seeing any results or conversions. When can I expect them?
Oh man, this is cutting deep all of a sudden. You blindsided me, in all honesty. I don't know how I would do this. Let's do it your side, I think. Okay. You put me on the spot there, man.
Okay, let's preface this. This is a client that you have. It doesn't matter if it's PPC. It really doesn't matter, but it's just not worth having. They're either micromanaging you, or they're asking, there's a word for it, where basically they're going out of the scope of work, and scope creep. They're scope creeping into other things that are not part of your invoice, not part of the services that you've discussed and agreed upon. And so this encroachment makes you feel as a freelancer that you might be taken advantage of, or you're not being able to freely do your job in the manner and cadence that you would like to, which happens in PPC just because there's a lot of expectations in performance marketing, and you have to be very careful to lay the groundwork down and the scope of work accurately down and communicate that. So for me, I would only do this if I've, one, given proper warning. You know, no one wants to just fire a client if they haven't talked about the issue before, just because there might be miscommunication. Sometimes I get clients in different parts of the world where the way that they interact with me is just very direct, no pleasantries. Hey, hi, how you doing? So I think communication within itself needs to be, talked about and say, hey, I understand that you see the account like
Come
this,
on, man.
but I, as a PPC manager, have to let you know that's just not how it works. This is how it works. Google takes a long time to assimilate you into other competitors' spaces, and we have to talk about what you could do on your side of the coin with your website. That's usually how it goes, right? And then I'll go in after and be like, all right, if you don't want to listen to me, if you don't think that you micromanaging me is actually deterring us from reaching collaborative results, I'm going to have to say, hey, this is my foot down. I cannot continue to work with you anymore because you're not respecting what I just mentioned. How does that sound for you, Ryan?
Yeah, it's always difficult. Listen, we're in that performance marketing bracket, and we're not always going to have, the best clients. We're not always going to have clients that we see eye to eye. We get a little bit unlucky sometimes, and we may think that people are genuine, but then you work with them for a little while, and you can see that, oh, we want this, we want that, and why isn't this happened? Why isn't that happened? I've had so many horror stories over the years. I remember it was almost like a Craig David song, right? I signed the client on
Oh,
Monday. Yeah, honestly. On Tuesday, he was getting
throwback.
a little bit like, a little bit like,
Craig
what's going
David.
on? Yeah, honestly. Craig David?
Yes, definitely.
That like Monday song or whatever.
Yep.
Um, yeah, this is what happened. Like Monday, I signed him. Tuesday, he was getting a little bit, unsure. Wednesday he wanted to cancel, and then Thursday I managed to speak to him, and Friday he did cancel, and
That's
I couldn't
funny.
believe it. I just signed the guy, and then the start of the week, and by the end of the week he was gone. So that was just crazy. I was like, wow, like he was expecting instant results, like almost like instant. So that was
Yeah.
just bonkers. So that was one as well. And then over the years, I've had some. I mean, I had one guy who I had a very difficult phone call with. This was probably a year or two ago. And he was just not professional, And I said, look, this is the thing. And, I think I may have messed up on my side or something. I can't remember exactly what it was. Um, and, we had a call and I was like, look, I don't really want to work with you anymore. I don't think you're very professional and things like that. And he's like, "Oh, dude, come on, man, dude, talking like that." And I'm just
Bro,
like, I mean, I want to swear because I'm getting angry right now, right?
do
But
it.
I'm not going to swear. Um,
It'll be the
but the
it'll be
thing,
the clip.
yeah. But the
Joel will
thing
clip
is,
it.
it's like he's so not professional. Like you're supposed to be a business owner. You're supposed to be running a company, and you're calling me dude. You're calling me man. And I don't mind that with friends, but we're not friends. You are a client. I'm
Mm,
providing you a business. I want that professional, courtesy between us. Don't call me dude.
yeah.
Don't call me man. Don't call me
No.
bro and things like that. So he was just not the right type of client, and he was in a tough niche as well. So yeah, I should not have worked with him. There's been a few others as well, but most of the time, I've had to give them an email and say, look, this is where we're at. I don't think we should continue. Sometimes I think maybe once or twice it's probably been shake hands and walk away, but most of the time it gets escalated. And they say, well, we want our full month's management feedback. Um,
Mm,
we're going to do this, we're going to report you, we're going to do that, and all these kind of threats and things like that, which I don't really appreciate. But listen, I'd rather just the management fee, even though I've done work, they want it back. It's a small price to pay for what it could turn out into. I pride myself on my professionalism, my trustworthiness, being transparent and things like that. If I got a bad review online, that could really damage me. So I'd rather just kind of take it on the chin, be the bigger person, and just give them the management feedback or whatever it was. It annoys me because it's free work that you and I have done. Essentially, if we've set up a campaign, it's free work, so it does frustrate me to a degree. but I'd rather just pay it and move on with my life rather than stress, have headaches and things like that, and just chalk it up to a lesson learned. And I think the more of those you have, the better your gut instinct is. When you're on a call with someone, you just get a feeling. You get like oh, it's a red flag. Like they've said this word, or they're speaking this way, or there's just something about them that you don't like, and you're on alert at that point, and you don't want to work with them. Do you get that, or is it just me?
No, I get that. I've had some nightmare clients in the past where um they basically scam me, from work, you know, and they'll on a specific platform. We don't have to get into it, but if you follow us, you know which platform it is. And I'm trying to, end the month management, and they just block me. So yeah, there's you like Ryan says, you start getting a gut feeling the way that they speak. They might be asking you specific questions, or just their maybe it could be also just the arrogance that they're maybe asking you or telling you that they'll give you a chance, things like that. So
Yeah,
we get a sixth sense, I feel like.
that's a little segue
Definitely.
into the next episode, I think there. But yeah,
Yeah,
so
we'll save that. So
oh
that
man,
segment is Ask a Freelancer, and getting back into what to do when things go wrong. I think this is a good solution for any baseline, problem that you could have under this episode. Perform an audit in the account. Ryan, do you want to discuss a little bit more about that?
yeah, I'll quickly run through this so we can wrap it up. But this is more aimed at anyone, whether you're a business owner or a Google Ads account manager, and you have a portfolio of clients. I think this is the, what to do when things go wrong. These are the actionable steps I would recommend. And it really comes down to performing an audit, like we said at the start of the episode. You know, as like just go through everything and check things off one by one. But these are just some of the things that may be causing this issue. So we've already talked about conversion tracking if it's not set up, and we've talked about not having enough budget and things like that. But what if all the cost is only going to a few keywords, and those keywords are just not getting traffic anymore, So maybe it's time to try other keywords, maybe pause them. If all the cost is going to one keyword or two keywords, consider pausing those. Performing an audit in the account is probably the best course of action, I think. Maybe all the cost is going to just a few keywords. Maybe we need to give the other keywords a chance to run. If those keywords aren't getting searches anymore, that could be something that we might want to pause those keywords and let the other ones have a chance of running. So that could be something to look out for. Location is another one. Are you targeting a large enough demographic and radius of a location? If it's too small, there might not be enough people in that area who are searching on a frequent basis, on a daily basis. So consider expanding the location, the radius out to capture more searches. Obviously, when you do that, you are liable to get more competitors in that area. So just be aware of that. That you may see your cost per clicks increase because of other competitors advertising as well. You might see that your search impression share, even though I don't really tend to put too much emphasis on that anymore, but that may go down. If it is a metric you track, it may go down because you're not getting as much coverage as you once were, because now there's additional competitors once you've opened up that radius. What about match types? That could be something to consider. If you're just using exact match, well, you're not really leaving much room for people to search for variations on different keywords. So consider opening the floodgates a little bit. Try phrase match, try broad match. All of a sudden, then you may unlock a lot more impressions and clicks and things like that, get a lot more data to work with. What about a bidding strategy? Are you spending the full daily budget? For example, certain bidding strategies only spend the budget they need in order to get certain results. So you might need to do a time or a day segmentation and take a look over the last 7 days. Have you been hitting the daily budget? If not, then that might explain something. Maybe you need to change the bidding strategy. So there's so many different things that you want to go through when performing a mini audit to identify what the issue could really be. And then at that point, at least for lead generation, I'm going to say test Performance Max as like a last ditch attempt. I'm going to use a US reference here. Throw a Hail Mary. Hail
Mm.
Mary? How do you say it?
Hail Mary. Yep.
Hail
You got
Mary,
it.
yeah. Throw a Hail Mary and just test Performance Max in a lead generation account just to see, okay, is that going to unlock anything? Is that going to give you more impressions and clicks when you advertise across the multitude of channels that Performance Max has to offer? You know, Gmail, display, YouTube, search, all those kind of things. And then finally, if it's still, after all of that, still not performing, you know, if it's going wrong, maybe Google Ads isn't for you. At this point, I would consider alternative platforms, paid social, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, maybe even Reddit, for example, depending on what the business is. Look at SEO as well, for example, organic social, you know, Facebook, you know, things like that. And then anything else, you know, other kind of platforms that, you know, off the top of my head, I can't really think about. But probably like more like billboards and radios and things like that. So there's so many different ways of kind of getting your name out there, brand awareness, visibility, potential customers. It may start with Google Ads, but it might not be for you. So you may have to, if you've tried everything and you still can't figure out what's going wrong, maybe it's just the market and there isn't a market there for you. There's no demand. You might have to try another channel. Is that fair to say, Gene? What's your thoughts on that last little section?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fair. Talking more about that last, if it's not working, try another channel. I mean, Google Ads is, in my opinion, the peak when it comes to PPC, pay per click, or just traffic acquisition in a quick way, just through paid. So it definitely has a lot of data that can really scale your business. And maybe you need to go to a Meta, or maybe you need to go to paid social, where the conversions and attributing one user to a conversion might be a little bit more washed and diluted and not direct like Google Ads. Maybe you should just be happy with getting traffic on a specific landing page, you know what I'm saying? And not really the full submit form experience that you would get on Google Ads. There's just a lot of different, other platforms that you could use that can still give you good traffic, but maybe I'm biased. Call me biased, but in my opinion, Google Ads gives you so much valuable information with the audience that's searching, with the specific search terms, that the product, it's so granular with GA4 and conversion tracking set up alongside Google Ads that it's worth testing first, in my opinion, before moving to something else.
That's great. And I think just to kind of wrap this episode up, like I said at the start as well, Gene and I both offer audits. So if you are interested in having a Google Ads Pro look over your Google Ads account, your campaigns, give you feedback, recommendations on where to optimize and improve. If everything is going wrong and you don't know how to fix it or where to even begin, give us an email, shoot us an email, theppccave@gmail.com, and choose your character, whether you're going to choose to go with me or if you're going to go with Gene. Either of us are a good option, in my opinion. We can both help you with your account. So just drop us an email, theppccave@gmail.com, and one of us will get back to you. Other than that, I think it's been a good episode. It's been really good to try the new platform out. I'm pumped for the future episodes as well. But for now, Gene, where can people find you if they do want an audit or consultation?
Yeah, GeneVillanoz.com.
And you can find me, Ryan Fenton, at ppc.co.uk. We release episodes every week, Monday, Mountain Time, up in the mountains in Geneva or somewhere, I don't even know. But we're on the socials as well, so you can find us on Instagram. We're on TikTok. We're on YouTube. Pretty much everywhere you'll see our faces. So give us a follow, like the videos if you like them, and of course, subscribe for more content coming up. And I guess if there's nothing else, we'll speak to y'all next time.